Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month is back. So I thought it would be fun if we made $15 bills. But it turns out that's very illegal. So there goes my big idea for the commercial. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Hello, this is Doyle. You're listening to Spirit Talk Show, spirittalkshow.com. Spirit Talk Show, bedtime stories for grown-ups. We are continuing to do our connection with people through stories, using AI-generated stories and also people's personal stories. If you guys would like to get involved, please go to spirittalkshow.com. You can get all the information there. We're continuing to see amazing growth in our podcast, which is terribly exciting. So English, just how we so English.
Just say terribly before something positive.
Positive. So it's terribly exciting. Okay, but we like to have guests on our show, and tonight we have an exciting guest. Today on Spirit Talk Show, we're honored to welcome Michael Hopf, a master of grit lit, whose storytelling spans the ruins of post-apocalyptic worlds to the raw beauty of the Western frontier. With over 40 books to his name and 2 publishing houses to boot, he's not just built a career, he's built an empire. His work doesn't just entertain, it reveals, it peels back the layers of humanity in crisis, forged by experience and spanned by discipline. Whether you're an aspiring writer or fan of the high-stakes fiction or someone hungry to know what it takes to turn scars into stories, hopefully this conversation will challenge and inspire you. So grab your notebook, steady your spirit, lean in. This one is going to be worth hearing. Thank you so much for coming on. I have pressed the recording because I like to kind of get the pre-talk too, if you're okay with that. I just want to let you know I am recording right
Absolutely.
now.
Let's do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you go by Jeff or Michael? You go by Michael?
I go by Jeff. Yeah. G. Michael Hopf. It's a brand I created for my novels years and years ago. And it kind of stuck because I did some children's books. I did a children's book.
Okay.
I was going to do more. That was under my name, Jeffrey Hopf. And then I wrote the apocalyptic novels. And then I didn't want the two to blur, kind of come together. And anyway, G. Michael Hopf, but just call me Jeff.
Jeff. Okay. Well, hi, Jeff. Thank you so much for coming on. What we're about is supposed to be a casual talk. I do very little editing because I want it to be authentic and real. I'm not really trying to make it sensational. I don't put like music behind us in the talking. It's just us talking. And then I have some stories which I created based on your work. I also like to do this thing where I create a tribute story to the person who comes on, and they can read it or we can read it to you, whichever you prefer. But we'd like to just go with it, take the conversation wherever it goes. If it goes to, because I really would like to talk about the Strauss-Howe generational theory, because I went down a rabbit hole today when I saw it on your website. So, well, let me ask you the first question. What drew you to the Strauss-Howe generational theory, and how did, sorry, my question is cut off here. Darn it. Okay, I'm going to ask that question again. Here was I saying I'm not going to do any editing, and then I'm going to read a question again, right? Which I'll edit out. Very limited editing. What first drew you to the Strauss-Howe generational theory, and how did the research reshape your worldview, both as a citizen and a storyteller?
Connecting myself to the Strauss-Howe generational theory is just kind of me having a general overall interest in kind of the human condition and what essentially brings about an apocalyptic event. You know, if you look at it, because I'm an apocalyptic author, and I've always been fascinated about that too, because how can you end up having an apocalypse? What causes the apocalypse? When you look at World War II specifically, that was an apocalyptic event in the essence that the nation states that entered into that conflict, some of them actually ceased to exist at the end of it. If you ask those people in Europe and other parts of the world that were heavily affected by the actual fighting in World War II, it was an apocalyptic event. So what they knew kind of going into it and what they were at the end were completely different. Entire lives were reshaped. And I've always been fascinated. And so I got connected. I was reading something else that then led me down kind of the rabbit hole where I then got connected with them, and I was reading their book Generations. And that was in like 2014, 2015, I was reading the book Generations. And I just find I can kind of connect. It makes sense to have this kind of cyclical thing because we do tend to forget as human beings. We do tend to forget our history. That's why we're usually doomed to repeat it.
Yeah.
Or if it doesn't repeat exactly, it rhymes really, really well. And then you just look at just like how all generations are and how we look at the younger generation and think that they're not as hardy as us. They're not as tough as us,
Yeah. Yeah,
because I remember when I went to school, I walked through 5 miles of snow and this other generation doesn't quite get it. They're softer and more weaker. And it's just kind of a combination of those things, and which led me to drafting kind of Hard Times Create Strong Men, which is kind of just a distillation of generational theory. Plus, it's also just kind of just a concept that's timeless and it's not completely 100%. There's other kind of variations of that then throughout time of kind of just that concept and that quote. And by the way, which by the way, that quote in itself is kind of like the one that launched 1,000 death threats, but that's a whole nother story.
Oh gosh. Wow.
Starting after 2020, that just because it really kind of got into the zeitgeist of things politically, and a certain side of the political aisle really gravitated toward it and then amplified it. And then just lots of praise came. And with that, lots of hatred and,
I was going to ask you about
death threats and all kinds of shit.
So there's an article, it seems like it's related. There's an article I read a few years ago called The Way We Never Were. And it's about the myth of how we think like the world was so beautiful in the 60s and everybody had so much free freedom. And then people are saying, well, yeah, if you are a white man and if you are a male and there, it's not there for everybody. But it made me think about, the quote you said, if we're doomed to repeat like history, why don't we see it? Why don't we like this? There's things happening now and right now. Like, why aren't we seeing it? Like, why did the public, why did the elite leaders not see it happening? Like, how does it seem to sneak up on us? History repeating itself.
That's a great question. I don't know. I think sometimes people are just blinded by a few things. I think there are people in power, no matter where you sit in the political side, they love power, and they're wanting to keep control. They want to maintain that power. Yeah. And then you just have kind of the people and I think it's mainly the fringe elements that are the loudest, by the way, and they're on either side. The 10+% on the left, the 10+% on the right, and there's the rest of us kind of in the middle, free-thinking people that just want to live a good life. Yeah. We all have a lot of things in common, but those are the two polar, kind of fringe elements that are really amplified, and they're the ones fighting. Yeah. And I think the power brokers on both sides take advantage of those. Those are the diehards. Those are the ones that kind of, I call it team politics. They play team politics. And it's something I can't play because I find when I've talked to people, most people that are just free thinking tend to have belief systems on a spectrum. Okay. Right. So if you were to lay something out from left to right or wherever, if you were just honestly being presented a topic and not being connected or tied to an allegiance to either side, you will find yourself go, oh, what about this topic? I'd probably land here. And if you were to measure it, it's maybe center right. And then maybe another one, you might be center left. And I think most people, if they aren't attached to an allegiance to one side, find themselves on that spectrum. I find myself on that spectrum.
So I think I think it's related to macro and micro. On a micro level, when we're with people around us, we're different, but then people have different macro opinions about the world and what they believe. You know what I mean? It's like the people on your street, you appreciate and you love, even though they might be different, like aisles, like different sides of the aisle. But then we seem to feel okay with having this macro impression of having a problem with people on the other side of the aisle, right?
Yeah, and there are people though that will gravitate toward just wanting to be part of a team. They like that, being part of a group, being part of a tribe, and they attach themselves. And even if they're not necessarily educated on a specific topic, they'll just go with whatever the team that they feel they closely align with. They'll decide with that team. Okay. And just me, I'd like to think that I'm principled, and I just go, well, you can't belong on a team like that because there could be something that violates your own value system. And if your team is advocating for that, but your values are different than that, you find yourself at a conflict. Yeah, and so some people I think will either try to like almost gaslight themselves into or become kind of like a contortionist to fit that inside of their own belief systems when it's completely foreign to that.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so when you look at that, that's fascinating. So you asked the question earlier. I think you have your political leaders. Some of them are they're blinded by just pure ambition and power. Greed is also there. Then you just have their foot soldiers, you could say, that are on the fringe elements on either side. They're just doing, cultural battle, and you see it right now. And they're just very, I don't know if it's even a lack of amnesia. They're blinded by ambition. And the other people are just blinded by just pure allegiance to whatever side that they're on, without understanding the historical context.
So in relation to your work, do you see yourself writing cautionary tales or preparing readers for the inevitable change that's to come? How do you your stories are about the apocalyptic events. So are you preparing people, or are they cautionary tales?
I like to think that I'm preparing people. And what that means, I find a lot of people tend to be not prepared. When I first wrote, I was always fascinated by end times, end of the world stuff. Ever since there was like a program was on in I think it was like the 80s, and it was about a nuclear war, and I was like gravitated. I was like, oh my God, this is fascinating. There's watching the mushroom clouds, and I was just like, oh, this is fascinating. I don't know, it's kind of weird, kind of macabre in some ways.
It's freeing too, because the bills and the taxes and everything. It's kind of strangely freeing to think in the apocalyptics we just look after ourselves. We don't have to pay bills or taxes, and we just go.
Yeah, you're living in a system that's completely foreign from what we're used to, and I find it. I've always found it fascinating. So I consumed a lot of the content, books and stuff. But when I'll answer your question this way. When I first wrote my very first novel, I wrote it because I wasn't finding one that was like it. And so, because if you read The End, is the very first apocalyptic novel I wrote, which is the first book in the New World series, it follows, a myriad of characters as they're struggling to survive after an EMP, specifically a super EMP, is detonated over North America.
Yeah.
And so, but what I have in that book is a pretty complex plot, because I wanted the reader to give a good idea of not just what's happening for, like, say, a suburban family in Southern California, but also what's happening in the halls of government, what's also happening in the military. And so you're getting these multitude of POVs. So you're getting this kind of worldview as a reader of what's happening, because all three characters that are dealing with these, that are actually in these places, are dealing with different things. And I wasn't finding that. So that's when I wrote it. And so when I wrote it, I didn't have much of a driving message, except to ensure that people were becoming more prepared, meaning preparedness is very, very important. And I think a lot of people, and you could say it being a prepper.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about if you're talking about being a prepper, because some people can go really far with that, right?
Yeah, and I think those tend to be people that, and I have lots of friends that are like that, but they tend to be people that I'm more of aware of, that there could be something that might happen. So I'm having awareness of it, but I don't attach myself and become in a constant state of fear or cynicism. Some people are constantly attached to it, and everything they see adds to that story that this is the pending collapse. I know that it could happen. And then therefore I prepare myself by having resources, skill sets, mindset in order to, I can navigate something if it ever were to happen. I look at preparedness. I think I define it for people this way. We all have insurance policies. We all do. We have car insurance, health insurance, life insurance, a myriad of different insurance policies. If you're in business, you have E&O insurance, you have all these different liability insurance, you have all these different insurances, just because one day something might happen. Preparedness is exactly the same way. We just went through a pandemic 5 years ago, which could have been way worse. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff, but we never expected something like that, of that magnitude, to actually happen. And then it did. It was on our doorstep, like that fast.
Yeah.
And a lot of people reacted in a very negative way. They didn't know how to deal with it, and they were very insecure. And how you get past that insecurity is by being prepared. It gives you peace of mind, so that if something were to happen, and it could happen, it doesn't have to happen on a grand scale. It could just be something that's regional. Say it's an earthquake, or say it's a hurricane that plows through it. But if you have those resources and that mindset, you can weather that storm, so to speak, a lot better when you don't. And that's why I look at preparedness. And when I wrote the books, I kind of I put characters in situations where there's a fight for resources. And I want the readers to come away feeling, and a lot of them have,
Yeah.
over the millions of books I've sold. I've gotten lots of people that reach out to me like, oh my God, because they're seeing how these characters are struggling without resources. And so a lot of readers have emailed me over the years and said, I've now decided to stockpile things. Again, they're not going full survivalist mode,
Yeah.
but they're just saying, something, I don't want to look at my child and say, I don't have that for you. I'm not prepared. So I'm going to get prepared. And that's the main driving thing I put in my books. I hope that answers Howie's question.
I have another question, actually. So you were a Marine, is that correct? Yeah. So is that where you get is that where you draw upon for being a survivalist, preparing for the future? Is your training?
Was that part of the culture of being a Marine?
Well, yeah. I mean, I was an infantry Marine, and so we are go through lots of training, lots of weaponry and tactics and things like that. There's also just a hardness and a mindset that, like I'll just talk about infantry Marines are given, just a basic concept of just willing to fight and survive. Did that, like, I think in the books, I pull a lot from my military experience. And that's why I always have military in my books, just because it's part of my life.
Yeah.
I had 6 years, 3 deployments. And
Wow.
It's also kind of a writing thing. Like, you should write what you know. It
Yeah.
makes the writing a lot easier when you do that. And so I do pull in because there's just, something unique about some military, not all military, by the way. Some military just has that kind of grit and moxie to them. And they have knowledge specifically maybe on how to do certain things that the average person may not today in the modern world.
So, like you said you were deployed 3 times. I don't know if you talk about where, but you went to places in the world where you saw a totally different world to where we live in here. And did that change your perspective on life and the world at all? Like, I'm presuming you went to Iraq and you went to somewhere like that, or Yemen, or maybe Africa. Like, do you share where you went, or is that information that you don't share?
Yeah, no, I can share what nothing's classified.
Okay.
Plus,
I didn't
most of that
declassify.
stuff
I
isn't
didn't
really
know if there's
classified
personal
anyway.
trauma attached or something. So,
Yeah. I look at my 6 years in,
mhm.
and there were some moments that were uncomfortable, but I think strength and confidence and a strong mindset comes from being comfortable being uncomfortable and reframing those situations as learning opportunities. And that's what I've done.
That's
They weren't the
interesting.
best, but I look at the military as an incredible time in my life. And I think the United States military, or just the military in general, is a good institution for the country and for the men and women that go in it, by the way. You talked about its core mission is to protect our nation state, right?
Yeah.
But secondly, what it does is it gives those young men and women perspective.
Okay.
Valuable perspective.
Mhm.
They go around and they see things. They leave the comforts of the United States. And if they're forwardly deployed, they get to see things that they normally wouldn't see.
Mhm.
And they also get to serve with people from all walks of life, which I think is very important,
Very
because so often we can find ourselves kind of siloed
Yeah,
into
for
certain
sure.
places.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
now we're stuck with people, black, brown, yellow, doesn't matter, all walks of life, all different places. And you really get to be with them, and it's like it becomes a family, and it really does. I know in my years in the infantry, you're very much kind of a family unit.
Yeah.
Again, black, brown, yellow, it doesn't matter. And you look at them as your brother, sincerely.
So my son,
And there's just really not a lot of racism that I experienced at all when I was in there.
that's cool. My son is 18. He just graduated high school. And the one thing I was trying to push on him is you need to travel. You need to see other places in the world. He's actually talking to military. He's talked to the Marines and the Navy and stuff. And he's very smart. But you need to get out and you see the world. I mean, he is my perspective. I traveled a lot. So he's not like your typical 18-year-old. But yeah, you got to get out there. You got to see places. You guys don't know the places in the world that people are living in lean-tos. There's places in the world where people are living in the dirt. People don't know that if you make more than $50,000, you're probably in the top 15% of earners in the world. People don't realize that we think we're poor, or some people think they're poor, and you're not. you haven't seen the world. You don't see people who are living on $20 a day in like in China, probably less. But
Well, you see people living on less and they're happy.
and they're happy, and
And that's something too. They feel fulfilled in their lives. I remember, speaking of like deployments, we did my second deployment. We ended up doing it. We were on a ship and we were doing 6 months. Called Westpac.
yeah,
And we ended up, it was like all this stuff was going on in Somalia. So we ended up having to go and do a non-combatant evacuation operation in Kismayu, Somalia. And I was part of one of the teams. We were doing a diversion. And so we had these like hovercrafts, and we landed on, the beach of southern Somalia. And there was nothing there. We were just a diversion while choppers from another ship went in to actually go to the State Department facility and evacuate, State Department personnel. Anyway, so we get there and we have all these hours to kind of dick off. And so we get off, and there's this one guy he was a CB, because the CBs operated what they call LCACs.
Mm-hmm.
These are the hovercrafts. And he goes, oh my God, because he'd already done the advance. He'd already kind of scoped out kind of the beachhead before we went. And so he'd already met this native. And so he goes, hey, Hopf, you got to go there's this guy like in the bush. And so he takes us there, and there's a guy sitting around. I mean, it's like stepping back, like prehistoric time. Here's a guy sitting around just like a loincloth. I know it sounds extreme, and just had all these fish on a stick sitting in front of a fire.
Yeah, that sounds
He's
like
just sitting there hanging out.
Sounds like a book.
And nothing else around him. He just had like some kind of lean-to tent made out of a hide. And didn't really speak. We didn't speak the language. I think it was the Jamba. It was kind of hello and kind of that kind of their language. And we just he shared his food with us, which just wasn't much.
Wow.
Like, again, these little tiny fish that were just kind of on this stick sitting in front of the fire. We hung out with him for a while until we had to get back to the vehicles. But it was just that perspective. It's always stuck with me. I mean, God, that was many, many years ago. But again, looking at this guy, and he seems super happy. And here he is just sharing what little food he has with us. And it was just this fascinating experience. And I really encourage people, young people specifically, to travel.
I tell my son, well, like one thing that struck me that you said earlier is you have to become comfortable with being uncomfortable. And it makes me think about the young people I work with, and they feel this entitlement to be comfortable all the time. When you're not entitled to be comfortable, it's just something you have to create for yourself, right? You have to create and you got to be comfortable sometimes in uncomfortable situations, right? I mean, that's part of being life. I'm glad my son has a great perspective. He works as an assistant plumber, and they love him because he's an 18-year-old who's smart, like willing. I'm happy and on time. He's like, where did you come from? You're a unicorn. Like, where did this person come from? Yeah. So,
well, that's just a testament to you, man. That's a testament to you and what you guys have done as parents for him.
So, getting back to your book, Howie wanted to ask you a question about, and it's related to generational theory. Do you want to read that one?
Yeah. Which characters or plot lines across your books best reflect the generational shift? Those who've known.
Yeah. Oh, did you get it?
Yeah. Yeah. So the main character, so the quote I wrote in there comes into book 7 of the New World series.
Yeah.
Those who remain. And in there you have Gordon Van Zandt, who's the main protagonist in the story. And what's interesting, if you read the books, it goes across 2 different specific timelines. You have timeline that's happening in the year 2066, where you're introduced right in the very first prologue. You're introduced to a character named Haley, which is Gordon's daughter. And it's the year 2066, and she's in Olympia, Washington, which is now part of a new country called the Republic of Cascadia. And so you've got that timeline that's happening, and then you go back as the reader, and you're experiencing actually, there's another timeline really quickly, like 2004, when he's actually in Iraq at the Second Battle of Fallujah.
Okay.
But then you get taken up to kind of more of a modern day, where he's actually, a few years later, where you actually have the events unfold. Which is like 2013 is in the books, is when I think it's 2013. It's been a long time since I wrote those books, where the actual EMP happens. And so you're following him generationally. And then he eventually, I kind of shoulder each book with a prologue and an epilogue that takes place in 2066. And then the main chapters in each book is that current timeline, the present day timeline for the characters. So in the 2066, you see his grandchildren and his children.
Okay.
And he makes that quote when he's kind of having a argument with his grandson on the tarmac. because this is like, it's just the beginning of the formation of kind of the Republic of Cascadia. The United States has kind of been diminished significantly. I'm giving a lot of spoilers for people. And so, and the way he thinks they need to secure power and form this new nation state, this new republic, is a little harder, tougher. He's more, kind of just, he really wants to hammer these people he looks at as his opposition, or his grandson is opposite it. I think to be a little more kinder and gentler. Mm-hmm. And he just kind of, that's when he recites that to him, trying to having him understand that, listen, these things, we are where we are because hard men have created this right now. If we were to go, he's essentially telling him in a nutshell, like, if we follow what you do, we're going to end up not creating this new republic, which we need. And because the United States ends up becoming kind of like a dystopian kind of dictatorship, or what's left of it. And it's being run by a president, his name is President Connor, who becomes, in order to kind of keep the grips of power and to keep states from pulling away and seceding, he just starts fighting everybody and just killing people. And so anyway, that's where he recites that quote, because again, you have these generations, and he's just trying to remind his grandson that, listen, we need to be tougher in order to have the freedoms that we have.
So do you intentionally design it like multi-generational dynamics in your story, or did they just like form when you're creating, naturally form?
That's a great question. And it actually was just what they call process writing. So when I first wrote the very first book, I didn't have the prologue in there. I didn't have a 2066 timeline, and something felt off. I start the book with kind of the character development of Gordon and what happens to him in Iraq, the Second Battle of Fallujah. And I was like, something didn't feel right. I need something else. And I created this through process writing. It was kind of a flow state you get into when you're writing. I came up with this 2066 scene where it's his daughter, and she's kind of being interviewed by this reporter, and to talk about the 50th anniversary of the founding of the Republic of Cascadia. And that's how the book starts. And I really loved it. I was like, they're really, really interesting. Beta readers love that as well. And then with that, I decided to have the epilogue as well also be 2066. And then I decided I like how this is going. It's giving the readers two different viewpoints because of two different timelines. So I just kept it going. So again, in each one of the books, you have the prologue and epilogue is 2066. Yeah. And then again, the main canon is, and so it was just all done by process writing, which is just kind of getting into a flow state and just writing. I didn't plot that, by the way. It just kind of came about.
So we should take a second, because you are obviously a very successful author. We should talk about your works and your current works and what's coming up and where they can buy and where they can find out. So we can do the plug part of the show if you would like.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So are you writing anything like new right now that's about to be released that you can talk about?
I am actually in the midst. I have a contract with Aethon Books, and they want to continue the series.
Okay.
It's been a long time, but this will be in the universe of the New World series, but completely different characters and in a different part of the United States. I'm going to focus it on Texas and what I call the Texas Federation. And what eventually becomes a Texas Federation. So that'll be a new series of books that I'm working on.
I think, yeah. So no movie options yet? Have you had any options for?
I've had movie options, yeah, and they've gone nowhere. So I had a movie option with the producer who did Backdraft. Mm-hmm. He wanted to take the end. He optioned it for a year, and it went nowhere. And then I had another book that was optioned. That's Nemesis, which is a spinoff trilogy that I have that ended up going nowhere. And then the closest I got was I actually got to, we were talking about casting. We'd actually raised some money already, and we also had the actual screenplays done. And that was for a novella called Mother, which is an apocalyptic horror story.
Oh, that sounds really
not in that series at all. It's completely different.
So I'm friends I'm personal friends with an author, David Brin, who wrote that Kevin Costner movie, the one about the postman. Is it called The Postman?
Postman.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm familiar with it. And the one thing he said was, it was a hard experience as an author. He wasn't even in, like he was kind of invited to the premiere as an afterthought, and he sat in the back, and he felt like this is my precious baby. And of course, they made the movie, and I became secondary to it. So that are you concerned about that in a movie making process?
Yeah, when I was working with the screenwriter and director for Mother, he actually wanted me involved, and more so in the screenwriting. And I told him I didn't want to because I'm not a screenwriter.
Yeah,
And that's a different principle, by the way. It's a different medium.
it definitely is.
I don't know how to write a screenplay, but I assisted him with it. The screenplay, I think, came out really good. He's also was going to be the director of it. It was going to be filmed in Hungary.
So it
And then that all fell apart when the Screen Actors Guild and the Writers Guild strike. That kind of just that dissolved everything.
Well, it's in development hell. It could come back, right? It could come back. It's not dead, is it? Right? It's not gone.
It feels a little dead right now.
Well, yeah, okay, but we'll look out for. So all your books are available on Amazon, and it's under G. Michael Hopf. Is that how you say your last name?
That's correct. Yes.
Howie and I were having a conversation about how to say your last name, and sometimes he's better at reading names and pronouncing them than I am, because it's hard for me to say Hopf. It's two sounds, P and F, don't come together in the Irish language too well.
And by the way, man, if you went and just said Hoff and didn't have the P in there, that's totally fine too. It's okay.
Hoff, okay. Hey, that would have been easier. Like now you tell me. So I have this tribute story, which would you like us to read it to you, or you would like to read it?
Sure, go ahead.
You want us to read it to you? Okay, Howie's going to read it to you.
Okay.
Okay.
The Man Who Wrote The Edge, a story tribute to G. Michael Hopf. Once, in a quiet town under a vast western sky, there lived a man who'd seen the world fall apart more times on the page than most ever imagined in real life. But before the ink, before the pages and paperbacks, he was forged in real fire, boots on dust, breath in battle, eyes scanning a horizon where survival wasn't metaphor. He wasn't always a writer, at least not the kind that sells 1 million copies and builds empires of story from grit and memory. First, he was a Marine, then a diver, a protector, a man who learned to read people before paragraphs. But something inside him, call it instinct, maybe spirit, kept whispering that the stories weren't finished, not the ones he'd lived, not the ones he'd carried. So he did the unthinkable. He wrote the word as he saw it, raw, human, fractured but still searching for meaning. His first novel didn't just sell, it roared, because readers saw themselves in his characters, survivors who'd lost something, but never the will to keep walking forward. He gave us the new world, and what he really gave us was truth wrapped in fiction, pain sculpted into prose, hope in its most honest form, hard-earned, scarred, and earned again. Beyond the books, he built bridges. He taught others how to write with discipline, how to publish with integrity, how to believe in their voices even when no one else did. To many, he became more than an author. He became a signal flare in the fog of self-doubt, a voice that said, "You can do this if you're willing to fight for the story." G. Michael Hopf didn't just write dystopias. He made resilience poetic. He made war and aftermath human. He even showed us that even in the harshest landscape, real or imagined, there's always a road forward if you've got the guts to take it. And we, the readers, are grateful he did.
So what we did, Jeff, is
wow, that's awesome. I mean, really, thank you, by the way. That's an honor. That was really nice.
I'll email it to you if you want, if you'd like to have it.
Yeah, I'd like that. Yeah, that was great. Thank you.
So what we did is we researched you online on your website and like other podcasts, we kind of brought it all together and we kind of created the stuff we liked, and then we generated a story based on that. And I think it was very cool. You are like this almost intimidating real man who wants to, who's a Marine but there's something about you. I can see that you have heart too. It's not just about so some people get so married to I'm the tough Marine guy. I can never be a nice guy. I have to always be the ass, right? And some people get married to the I have to be delicate and loving like all the time. And somehow you found a medium, which I think is really cool. Because you feel...
I appreciate that.
Because you feel warm, you feel accommodating, you feel interested, but then you obviously seem very strong and you feel very informed and you seem like you know what F you're talking about, right? So,
Well, that's part of an ego thing, I think, and I know a lot of Marines are still holding that. I just look at my time in the Marine Corps as a time that helped shape me, but it's not who I am exclusively, and I think that's
yeah.
important in anything. I don't cling. I'm very proud of my time, but I don't. It's not. It's not all that I am.
So, but you did 6 years. Why didn't you do any longer than 6 years?
That's a great question. It's because there's two things. One, I had gotten just kind of what I wanted to out of the Marine Corps. And then if you want, I'd reached the rank of sergeant. And if you want to go past that to like staff NCO, staff
Yeah.
sergeant, yeah, they really want you to go into what they call these B billets, either like recruiting or the drill field, like, to be a drill instructor. And that was just anything I really wanted to do.
Okay.
And I also felt kind of alone. These guys I'd gone in with, they all had like 3 and 4 year contracts, and they all just started getting out. So my last 2 years, I was just kind of I was like a senior NCO,
Yeah.
and then the people I kind of knew were all kind of just in regular enlisted, and I couldn't really fraternize with them, and so I just it was just different. I'd done all I'd wanted to do. I did one more deployment, and I was like, I'm done. But it didn't stop my adventure. I still had that in me, but I got everything out of the Marine Corps I wanted.
Well, okay, so I'm putting you on the spot first for a minute here. So we're getting pretty close to having to wrap up here because I have to do my next interview. But if you had a minute to give your message to the world, to the 120,000 people who are listening to my show, what's your 1 minute? What do you want people to know right now? What do we need to know?
And I always want to drill down on preparedness. And because I think it's very important, and it's not just because maybe tomorrow there'll be some apocalyptic event, but you look in the world, man. I mean, sometimes my books maybe almost look like current events, possibly, than they actually do kind of fiction.
Yes.
And that is just to be prepared, because you just don't know what tomorrow kind of portends. And I have these things what I call the 4 pillars of survival that I kind of created years ago, and that talks about resources. So gather resources as best you can. Gather skill sets, learn how to do things, learn how to build, learn how to fix things, learn how to tinker, just have that skill set in your head, develop a strong mindset, and then also keep your fitness and health at optimal as best you can. Not saying you have to have a 6-pack of abs, but just saying be fit, have conditioning, because if something happens, you have, looking at a man, you have the responsibility to take care of your family, and you need to have that physical conditioning to do so.
Yeah.
So that's it. Just be prepared. You don't know what tomorrow, and it gives peace of mind if something happens, because you've got yourself taken care of and you've taken care of your family.
I can't agree more wholeheartedly. I couldn't help thinking of the Zombieland quote that like the rule 1 of Zombieland is cardio, right? Because,
Exactly.
And it shows a scene of a heavyweight guy running and the zombie chasing him, right? He's not going to last for very long because I know that I'm in my 50s. It's really important to be fit and to stay fit because I see people who are 15 years younger who don't look after themselves. And I'm thinking, boy, it doesn't get easier, babe. It doesn't get easier. You got to do something to look after yourself.
Well, I could tell you look good. I'm in my 50s too. And the thing is, I think we're like outliers is really what we are now. I'm in my mid 50s and I'm in pretty good shape. But I'm actually now looking at it just from a longevity standpoint. I want to be around. I've got kids that, I want to actually know my grandchildren. And again, I still think that I'm a patriarch of my family and I want to make sure that I'm there for them. And
that's great. I don't want to
just
know my grandkids.
And one way to do that is to have fitness and health. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't want to just know my grandkids. I want to hike with them. I want to hike the Pacific Trail with them. I want to take them camping on a road trip. I want to take a trip to China with them. I want to just know them. Now, I had my kids late, so if they have grandkids in their 30s, I'm going to be an old grandpa. But still, I want to be a 100-year-old grandpa taking my kids on a trip because that's why not.
And there's no reason you can't be.
Yeah.
And there's no reason absolutely why you cannot be, healthy. I know people in their 90s, they're still really healthy. And they do that by keeping this sharp and keeping their body fit. That's it.
That's what I tell you, Howie. I tell Howie all the time, you got to do something to keep your brain sharp every day. And you got to keep your body sharp every day. So Howie, you need to get on that, okay?
Got it.
Okay, so like Jeff told you, so you're in trouble if you don't. So, well, thank you so much for coming on, Michael. We didn't read a lot of stories, but I loved hearing your stories, and you were a pleasure to have on. And again, do you want to plug something before we sign off here? Is that
I would just say, again, you want to, pick up my books. The latest book I'd ever written was Cries of the Dying World. I wrote that 2.5 years ago. That's a standalone apocalyptic novel, but very driven by emotion and just the understanding of humanity. Essentially, in a nutshell, what it does, it asks the question, what would you do if you found out you only had 2 weeks left to live?
wow?
And that's the question that all readers are left with. And that's the question that all the characters have to deal with.
I feel like because I've heard these type of stories before, and as you've got 2 weeks to live, so we should be living right now like we have 2 weeks to live, and live your best life. Well, maybe I probably wouldn't work out as much if I only had 2 weeks to live. I might eat I might eat a little bit more French fries if I had 2 weeks to live. But I understand, but still trying to have your best
Well,
experience.
it ties into, Marcus Aurelius was a very wise, Roman emperor, and he wrote the Meditations. But I think, is it Memento Mori? Is that,
Yeah,
I might be wrong. So where he essentially, I think I'm paraphrasing kind of the translation of it, essentially, like it's kind of knowing that you're going to die. And when
yeah.
you have that knowledge, you wake up every day knowing that one day you're going to die. You will actually choose with intent. You'll intentionally live your life differently,
Wow.
knowing that. And I think it's important to have that, because that's one thing that's for certain outside of taxation is that we're going to die.
Well, maybe not. Maybe there's going to be a scientific thing that we live forever, like that movie where we're paid in time and people can live for thousands of years. But I doubt it. But it's a nice thought, because I'd like to think that I could see what it's like in 200 years, right? But
I think that would be fascinating, by the way. Like, and maybe there's the ability. You were mentioning you had a guy on earlier talking about consciousness.
mm-hmm.
Maybe AI, once all the disruption of AI happens, and once everything settles down, because there'll be a lot of disruption, by the way,
Yeah,
that it will teach us how to upload our consciousness, and then we can live in a digital kind of simulation, if we're not already, but living kind of in a digital simulation forever.
forever. Yeah, I mean, or clones that we can transfer consciousness to a 20-year-old body. Maybe that's there too. But we talked a lot about, our person was talking a lot about, if you made a copy of the human body and copy the consciousness, is that a different entity, or is that you being transferred over, right? Is that a different entity that thinks it's you, or did you actually get transferred over? So that's the thing. Because we had a conversation Go ahead.
Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, we had to think about Star Trek when people beam up because they get destroyed and then they're created again on the ship. So is that a different entity that appears in the ship that thinks it's them, or did you actually get transferred up?
That's a great question.
Yeah, that's what we.
Yeah, that's a great question. And then you look, if you create a clone,
Mm-hmm.
why doesn't a clone instantly come with a consciousness? I mean, there's this assumption that it doesn't have a soul, it doesn't have a consciousness. I don't know. Really, is that true?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, do dogs have consciousness when they live? Dogs seem to have consciousness and opinions and feelings and what we would call as a soul. I mean, I have 2 dogs. It's hard to believe they don't have some kind of soul in there. So I mean, yeah, it's hard to explain away. But I have my next guest coming here in about 3 minutes. So thank you so much, Michael, for coming on. I said Michael. Let me say it again. Thank you so much, Jeff, for coming on. I promise I'm not going to edit this. All these mistakes are going to be in there because I really don't.
That's totally fine. I like it like that. It's just real. So
I want it to be real. I want the mistakes to be in because, I mean, that's real. I think too many people make these fake things. I think we need to be more authentic. But
something with AI coming on, and I know you're crunched for time. With AI coming on so aggressively, I think there's going to be people are going to yearn for authenticity.
Yeah.
For something that's uniquely human.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, unpolished,
yeah,
unoverproduced is going to be something that AI can give you. Yeah, and people are going to yearn for something that's just real. So.
I think they do. I think my guest is popping on here, but we can just finish up. I think it's my show isn't about the AI generated stories. My show is about connections and stories, and we're using the AI as a tool. So if we use the thing as a tool, then we can still connect with people, right? But I know people get mad at me because my AI is creating stories. I understand. But for authors like you.
I've got a whole opinion on that. If you ever want me to come back on, I'd love to go down the rabbit hole of AI and where I think that's going.
I would love you. I've
got very opinion about it.
I would love you to come on and talk about that. Let's schedule that. Actually, I'll send you the link. But thank you. But thank you so much. And I did a little intro before you came on, so hopefully you like that. You didn't get to hear that because I did an intro and then you flaked on me, and I thought, this man.
I did. Hey guys, who's listening? I totally flaked on him. These guys, I feel really bad about it. I genuinely lost track.
Like I was here sitting thinking he's supposed to be this strong archetype, and then he freaking flaked on me. Wow, he's this entitled little. I'm too important for you. OMG.
No, I deserve all of it. Give me all the heat because I totally deserve it.
It's this bastard. He said, I'm sitting here at 6:00 and he totally flaked. That's like, oh my gosh, I was too busy getting the nails done or something. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. No, I did though. I messed that up, and I'm really sincerely apologize for that. And I appreciate you guys' flexibility and let me just jump on 20 some minutes late. And again, I after this conversation, I'm sad that I missed that extra time because it would have been an even more great conversation. So again, I sincerely apologize, and the next time I won't do it. I promise.
Well, we are going to do it again. I'd love you to come back and talk about AI, and I love talking to you. It's like the best conversation I've had this month. So we need to talk more. That's really cool. And so let me just sign off here. Guys, if you guys would like to get involved, go to spirittalkshow.com. Thank you for listening, and good night. Say good night, Howie.
Good night.
And Jeff.
Good night, Howie. See you, Doyle.
Okay, bye. Thanks for spending time with us. Now go make a story worth telling.